Hello and welcome. In this video tutorial, I'm going to use the existing Pacific Trails Resort website as a starting point to create a new version of the website that uses an external style sheet to configure color. To begin, I have opened my code editor. I'm going to create a new folder and name it Chapter 4. And I'm going to select Enter. In the Chapter 2 folder, I'm going to right-click on the Pacific folder, and I'm going to copy that. I'm going to then go to the Chapter 4 folder, I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to say Paste. So now I have copied the Pacific folder into the Chapter 4. I'm going to right-click on the name Pacific, so right-click, and I'm going to go ahead and rename that folder. And I'm just going to name this CH4, and I'm going to leave Pacific. So I'm renaming the Pacific folder to CH4 Pacific in keeping with the textbook instructions. And I'll go ahead and select Enter. Inside of the CH4 Pacific folder, I have the index and Yurts HTML files. I'm going to right-click on this CH4 Pacific folder, and I'm going to create a new file. And I'm going to name this pacific.css. And I'm going to hit the Enter key. Cascading style sheets, or the acronym CSS, is used to format the layout of a web page. With CSS, you can control the color, font, the size of text, the spacing between elements, how elements are positioned and laid out, what background images or background colors are to be used, different displays for different devices and screen sizes, and much more. Style sheets are composed of rules that describe the styling to be applied. Each rule has two parts: a selector and a declaration. The selector can be an HTML element name, a class name, or an ID name. The declaration indicates the CSS property you're setting, such as a background color, and the value you are assigning to the property. Let's create some CSS styles for our web pages. I have opened my pacific.css style sheet, and the first style that I'm going to create is for the body selector. The body selector represents the body element. I'm going to type the word body and then curly braces. And between the curly braces, I'm going to type in my declaration code. To make things easier and to cut down on coding errors, I'm going to use the Emmet shortcuts. Let's go ahead and review the Emmet cheat sheet once again. This time I'm going to look for the CSS section on this web page. From the instructions for this case study, I know that I want to add in a background color. I'm going to use the keyboard combination of Control F, which is fine, and then in the input field I'm going to type in background color. And notice this heading comes up background, and I'm looking for this style right here, background color. So these white letters, BGC. I'll return to my pacific.css style sheet, and inside of these curly braces, I'm going to type BGC pound FF, and then I'm going to select the tab key. This gives my background color for the entire body section a white background. I'm going to select the Enter key, and on the next line, the style rule that I'm going to use is to configure the text color of the web page, a dark gray. So I'm going to type the letter C, pound, and then 555, and then tab. To find that style in Emmet, I'll return to the Emmet cheat sheet, and in this input field at the bottom, I'll type in the word color. The word color is used many times on this web page. I'm looking for the heading that is named color, so I'm going to just select next. And right here, this heading color comes up. And this letter C represents the declaration property color. So I'll go back to Visual Studio Code. I'm going to add the Emmet shortcuts next to each line of code for future reference. So I'm going to type in BGC pound FFF. But instead of selecting tab, I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to select Control /. Now notice it went ahead and it commented out the entire line. So I'm going to do Control X and I'm going to remove this and put this at the back of this semicolon. So I'm going to put in a return after the semicolon here, and I'm going to go ahead and type this in by selecting the /, the asterisk, and then C, and then pound 555. And then I'll just make that comment without using the shortcut. I'm going to save my file, Control S, and notice Prettier cleans that up for me. So I wanted to add the Emmet shortcuts next to each line of code in case I wanted to refer to them in the future. On the next line, I'm going to create styles for the header selector. Since I already have used that Emmet shortcut in the body selector, I can see my comment indicates that BGC are the characters that are going to be needed for the background color. So I'm going to type in header, which is my element selector, and then my curly braces. And between those curly braces, I am going to go ahead and type in BGC pound, and the color that I'm going to use is 002171, and I'm going to select tab. And I'm just going to make that comment again, and it's BGC pound 002171. On the next line, I want to make sure that I add in the color for this element, and it's going to be C pound FFF, and then tab. And once again, I'm going to add my comment, which is C pound FFF. So now I have my CSS comment in there. Some 6-digit hexadecimal colors can be written using a 3-digit shorthand. 3-digit shorthand is where you combine the duplicate digits from each RGB color component into one. This results in a 3-digit hexadecimal number instead of 6. An RGB color value is specified with red, green, blue. On the next line, I will add in the styles for the nav element selector. So I'm going to type in nav and my curly braces, and I'm going to select enter. And between these curly braces, I'm going to type BGC pound, and the value is going to be BBDEFB, and then tab. I'm going to add my comment once again, BGC pound BBDEFB. In your textbook, the letters for the background color are in uppercase, but I am using lowercase. CSS keywords and color values are not case sensitive. I'm going to go ahead and save my work, Control S, and that tidies up my code, and it jumps me to the end of that closing curly brace. I'm going to go ahead and type in the next style for the H2 element selector. So H2, curly brace, and I'm going to configure a medium blue text color. And I'm going to use the letter C, pound 1976D2, and then tab. I'll add in my comment. Next is the style for the DT element selector. So I'm going to go after that closing curly brace and type in DT, the curly braces, and we're going to add a color for that selector as well, and it's going to be C pound 0021 2, 1. So it knows that I've already used that color, so I can just use my down directional arrow key and select Enter and then Tab, since that color value has already been used once in my style sheet. So I'll add in my comment and make sure that I properly close that comment. For the last CSS selector, I'm going to use a class selector to apply a declaration to one or more areas of my web page. When setting a style for a class, we're going to configure the class name as the selector, and we're going to place a period in front of the class name. This name is going to be called resort. So I'm going to select period, resort, use my curly braces, and I'm going to configure a medium dark blue text, and it's going to be C pound 19. And notice it knows that I've used that, so I'm going to use the down directional arrow key. And I'm going to select Tab. And I'm going to put in my CSS comment. I'm going to go ahead and save this file, Control S, and notice Prettier tidies that up for me. I'm going to go out to my browser, I'm going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to type in jigsaw w3.org /CSS Validator. And I'm going to select by file upload, select the browse button, go to my CS152, Chapter 4 Pacific, and I'm going to select that pacific.css file and say open. And I'm going to go ahead and select check. It says congratulations, no errors have been found. Make sure your styles are correct, and if necessary, retest before you go forward. So since my file indicates that everything is correct, I would like to now link this file, the Pacific CSS file, to my index page. I'm going to go back into my code editor. I'm going to open up the index.html file. In my head section, I'm going to associate the index.html page with the Pacific CSS external style sheet. After my closing title tag, I'm going to go ahead and select the Enter key, and I'm going to type link and then tab. And notice that my cursor is blinking between the double quotation marks in my href attribute. So if I start typing the name Pacific, notice it comes up and automatically recognizes that file. I'm just going to go ahead and select Enter, and that file will now be associated with this index page. I'm going to go ahead and save this file, Control S, and I'm going to right-click on my index.html file, and I'm going to open with my live server. Now you can see that we have added some color to this index page. It doesn't exactly match the book layout because we added an unordered list to our navigation section right here, but don't worry about this difference. Our next task is going to find the company name Pacific Trails Resort and add some color to this. So I'm going to go back into my code editor, and I'm going to scroll down to this paragraph where it says Pacific Trails Resort. And I'll configure a span tag that will contain this text. So we already created a style for this class in our Pacific CSS style sheet. To add in a span tag, I'm going to type in span, a period, resort, and then I'm going to add curly braces around the Pacific Trails Resort, and then I'm going to select the tab key. And notice it went ahead and it added that span tag with the class resort around Pacific Trails Resort. We're going to do the same thing in our address. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to type the word span, a period, resort, and I'm going to add in my curly braces around Pacific Trails Resort, and I'm going to select the Tab key. I'm going to go ahead and save my work, Control S. I'm going to go out to my browser, and notice I don't need to refresh because I'm using the live server. And the page is already refreshed for me with the updated class styles applied. Notice right here, Pacific Trails Resort is in the color blue. I'm going to go back into my code editor. I'm going to open up the yurts.html file, and I'm going to go after the title tag, and I'm going to select Enter, and I'm going to type link and tab, and once again, between the double quotation marks for my href attribute, I'm going to start typing Pacific, and it recognizes that style sheet, and I'm just going to hit Enter, and then allow that to automatically fill in. I'm going to save that file. I'll go back out to my browser, and I'll now select the Yurts link. And notice these styles have also been updated for this page. There's one more style that they would like us to add in, so I'm going to go back to my code editor, and I'm going to go to my pacific.css file, and it's already open. I'm going to select that. Now notice I have a nav and then an h2 tag, but I would like to put my h1 element selector above the h2 to keep this in order. We're going to go ahead, and our last task, we're going to remove the empty space between the header area and the navigation area. The empty space is the default bottom margin of the H1 element. The margin is one of the components of the CSS box model with which we will work with in Chapter 6. Using this technique will cause the browser to collapse this empty space between the H1 and the navigation elements. So I'm going to type in H1, my curly braces, and between the curly braces, I'm going to type in MB0, and that stands for margin bottom 0, and then I'm going to select Tab. And I'm going to type in my comment, so my CSS comment, MB and 0, and I'm going to close that comment. I'm going to save my work. I'm going to go back out to my browser, and I'm going to refresh. And I'm going to go ahead and right-click in here, and I'm going to inspect. And this brings up the web developer tools in Firefox. It will also, if you do the same thing, it will bring this up in Chrome as well. And I'm going to select this little inspector over here, and I'm going to select this area right after the H1. And over here we have the H1, and it says margin bottom 0. I'm just going to turn that off and turn that back on so that you can see that it actually did make a difference. Over on the right-hand side where it says layout right here, this is our box model, and we will learn more about this in an upcoming chapter. If you ever wanted to see what the styles did, remember, I just went ahead and I right-clicked and I said Inspect, brought up these web developer tools. I selected this first icon to the left, and then you can select any element, and you can see the H2 has a color right now of pound 1976D2, and it shows you the value of that color as well. By adding a few lines of code to our pacific.css style sheet, we have transformed the display of our web pages in a browser. This video tutorial completes the 2 pages of the Pacific Trails Resort demonstrating the power of CSS. Thank you.